Welcome, everybody, to Inside LAFC, the Max and Vince podcast. I'm not Max. That's not Max.
And neither am I.
Yeah, neither is she. And if you're listening only in audio, you now can tell there's two different voices here. I'm Vince LaRosa, but with me is a familiar voice from her season with LAFC. And, of course, you watch her on ESPN Deportes, Katia Castrena. Katia, how are you?
I'm great. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. We'll talk about where I was later, but I haven't been here in a while, so I'd miss just being here. This is my second home. I just love being around you guys.
I'm very happy you said that, and also I'm very glad you're here because you'll see we would not be able to do this episode without Katia. But we've got a lot coming up. We're going to talk about, unfortunately, the loss to Vancouver. We're going to talk about a crazy schedule coming up. We're going to do some Leagues Cup talk because Katia, with her Liga MX background, is well placed to talk about that. And we have a very special guest, Denil Maldonado, and that's where you will learn how much Katia is better than me.
You will not want to miss that interview because it ended up having another surprise on top of that. So you just wait and see.
It did. We asked Denil what it's like to get into a team and to get comfortable, and then he tried to take me out of my comfort zone. We'll just leave it at that, right?
Yes.
I think that's good.
Yes, that's
okay.
Good.
Inside
Inside
LAFC, the Max and Vince podcast starts right now. All right, Katia, we have a lot to get to, even though we're kind of in this weird spot where the team actually has some time to prepare for the next game, but we'll get into why that's like this false sense of rest. It's not really the way it is. But you've been everywhere. You've been traveling everywhere. I think it's fair to say that even though you're everywhere with ESPN Deportes, that like LAFC is still your home base, right? Like,
of course, I missed being here, and even though I've been away, I've been following every game. I've been watching the games, so I know what's going on, and it's great to be back. It was great to be back at BMO Stadium for that Vancouver game, even though the result, of course, was not what we were expecting. I mean, just to be in the building and the energy, I just love being there. Like you mentioned, I feel it's my second home.
Mm-hmm. First time back since CONCACAF Champions League? I feel like it's been forever since I've seen you.
I know. But like the semifinals, because I missed the final, I was covering the NBA, so I wasn't there for the second leg
NBA
of the
finals.
The NBA
by
finals.
The way.
So it was like the Western Conference Finals first, and then the NBA finals. So I was traveling all over the place.
So before we get into the Vancouver game, because you were traveling, but you were still keeping up with the team. What have been your thoughts about this? It's been a weird couple of weeks. Since the CONCACAF Champions League. People don't know what to make of it. I have people telling me that LAFC were in the worst stretch they've ever been in their history. I don't think that that's true. But you tell me, what did you think of the little blip that LAFC had and how they're kind of playing now?
It's been definitely a rough stretch. And if we consider, you mentioned, they've had a full week of training this week for the first time since late May. That is insane. And I feel since they had to start the season at such a high level and such intensity because of the CONCACAF Champions League and then get into the MLS season right away. And we all thought, nothing happened. There's no like after the championship imposter syndrome, anything like that. And then I think because of all the games that they've had and all the travel, it got to a point where right now the players are fatigued, but not just like physically, but also mentally. It takes a lot, and it's a toll that now we're seeing when we're talking about those knockout stages games and all they had to go through. So I think that's what we're seeing now. Yeah,
having you here is awesome because, look, I'm only around LAFC. Max now has gotten to travel a little more with Apple TV, and he's doing more games. But I'm only around LAFC, so when I say, like, the guys seem tired, I'm only basing it off of that. You are around a lot of football teams, both internationally and here in MLS. Like, when you see these guys, can you sense the tiredness? Can you sense kind of the feeling that they have it, or am I making this up?
No, I totally see it and I can sense it. Also, you hear it from the guys when you get to talk to them. So it's been a lot, as I mentioned, with the games that they've played, the CONCACAF Champions League, where it's, two-leg games that you want to win to advance. So I think that takes a lot out of you. And then, as we were saying, like since late May, they've been having 2 games per week. And we're talking about you have to recover after a game, be here, but you're not really training, and then you just have to travel and go at it again. So that's why it adds up, and we're seeing it now.
I know why you're looking off camera, because we have a very important person, head of team security, Paul, here, who I've actually dubbed my agent.
I feel the pressure.
Yeah, you feel a little bit of pressure. It's good to see Paul. You got to be out of training and see Paul again. How much did you miss seeing Paul coming out of training?
I miss Paul a lot. That's what I told him when I got here. And he greeted me when I got here. And I'm like, it's been a while, Paul. I know you miss me.
That's how you know you're back at LAFC training. If you don't see Paul, if you came to LAFC training and didn't see head of team security Paul, were you really at LAFC training?
Exactly. No, you weren't.
Okay, so let's talk about the game that you were at. You enjoyed it. I enjoyed it less, maybe because I've been at a lot, but you said you were just back. That game against Vancouver, it just seemed like as much as the effort was there and they got it close, it felt like it just felt like it was never gonna happen. And for me, it was maybe too many mistakes. What was your overall kind of take on the game?
Yes, and after the high of a game against Seattle where they really had to grind it out, that game against Vancouver, I do believe, with what Steve said, that at the end of the day was more the mistakes that LAFC had, especially at the beginning of the game, and not to take away anything for what Vancouver did in their game plan, which was great, understanding the absences that LAFC had and trying to capitalize on that, and it ended up like working out for them. But when we're talking that you're down already a goal in the first 2 minutes and then 21 minutes in you're down 2 goals, it makes it really tough. And even though when they were able to cut the deficit before halftime with that Denis Maldonado goal, in the second half, then you allow that third goal, and I think that was it. It's really tough when you have a good team in front, and then you have to try and come back again after they scored 3 goals. Right. So it was really tough, and I do believe it was one because of the mistakes that they did. And when we look at the absences, it has to do with that. Not to take away from the effort, but when you have to start Ilie as a center back, it tells you that the team is struggling right now. Steve is struggling to just have all of the pieces in place.
Yeah. No, I think that's a valid point, and one that maybe we don't talk about enough. These guys aren't robots, right? So you go down a goal that, as much as you want to be professional, it's in the second minute. You can think to yourself, yes, we have 80 some odd minutes to get it back, but it still hurts you a little bit, stings, because that doesn't happen. We don't let in goals like that. Also, it was kind of, I wouldn't say it was a soft goal because it was a very good header, but off the set piece, it was like, you couldn't get around the pick from the set piece. The guy's a little bit too open. He kind of flicks it into that back post, and you're like, okay, now we're starting from a goal down. Then you're actually playing fairly well, and I think the second goal comes from a moment where Sifu has the ball like 25 yards out and goes to maybe take a shot, misses. They go all the way down the field. They score on you. You work so hard, you get it to 2-1, and then the third goal is like, it's a mistake, totally avoidable. But it's one of those things where, like, again, they're not robots, and they're thinking, God, we worked so hard. We did everything we thought we could do right, and then that's the goal we let in. That's such a bummer. And I think, again, it's not something that we talk about all the time with these guys. They're not robots. And maybe when you're more mentally fatigued, it gets a little bit deeper in your mind than it normally would, right?
That's what I was thinking, and what I was mentioning earlier about that fatigue, not just the physical tiredness, but also the mental tiredness. And when you're in a game where you, on top of everything, have to come from behind and be battling like for the whole 90 minutes pretty much, so that it just adds another layer and it makes it even harder. So I think the focus was a little bit difficult because of that.
Let's talk a little bit about that game plan, because Ryan Gauld playing left wing back, not something I had on going into it. I was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, Gauld, he's going to be important. No chance did I think that he was going to be a wing back. But to your point, and in Steve's point, like the ability to put him out there and just send in crosses to two, they're not towers, but they're big center forwards. I mean, Cordova's a big boy. Brian White is a big boy. But you get him out there and you just say, hey, maybe just cross the ball. And in a lot of ways, the game plan coupled with what you said, having to have Ilie at center back, it's like the perfect storm for Vancouver. Definitely.
That game plan, not trying to, like we were saying, take away from what Vancouver did, even though LAFC was the one that made mistakes at home. But yes, having those center forwards there and also trying to attack what we mentioned, like not having your best guys out there on those defenders there. So of course, like they were able to take advantage of that, and then you're not expecting that Ryan is just gonna be there and then come out of there. And if anything, you just like have his like magic left foot there for whenever the ball goes to that side. And so I feel like they were smart about it, and it ended up like giving them the result. Yeah, and if you have Jesus Stavamario out there, it's maybe a little bit different, but obviously he has an injury. Giorgio Chiellini, and I know a lot of people are asking, well, Giorgio played. He played 20 minutes. Why couldn't he have started the game?
And I think there's a big difference between him putting in 20 minutes, which I don't even think they wanted to have him play 20 minutes. I think him playing 20 minutes was like, Steve looked at him and goes, Giorgio, we have a chance to maybe get something out of this game at 3-2. What can you do? And Giorgio, being the professional, is probably like, I'll try. I'll go in there. That allows Ilya to then go into the midfield. You can be in a little bit more of a setup that you're used to. But he didn't say it specifically, but I just don't think that Giorgio was ever going to be able to go enough in the game that it always was going to be Ilya, right? Like, it was always going to be a tough decision because of everything that's going on. And he made the best of a bad hand that he was kind of dealt in a way. I mean, what are your thoughts on that from Steve's perspective when he looks at it and he looks at everything, injuries, absences, call-ups, and he's like, well, Ilya's played center back, I think 22 times he played center back for SKC in 2021. So, I mean, it's kind of the right call, right? Even though it doesn't work out.
It is the right call. Like you mentioned, and it must be so hard to be in Steve's position when you're looking at everything, every single scenario, and know that that's what you have to do and that's what you have to go for. And I'm sure he talked to Ilya, and Ilya, as you mentioned, and like every guy in this locker room, they're professionals. They want to help the team. And if the coach comes up to you and says, hey, I need you to play center back, I need you to remember like those days when you would be there in that position, and they're going to do it. They're versatile players and they're going to try and help. But of course, if you haven't been doing that for the past years, and especially with this team, it's not the same also in terms of communication, those movements, just being comfortable with the guys that are around you, and it shows. And not because you're not a good player, but because you're not used to it and haven't been used to it lately as much as you try. And yes, Giorgio, being the professional that he is, he probably like wanted to help the team, but then Steve has to look at every single thing and think ahead and be like, I'm not going to force my guys either, because I can risk so much more. Like, an injury can come, and what if that is a season-ending injury? So of course you have to take all of these things into consideration and just try to make the best out of what you have.
Before we start to look ahead, let's maybe leave them with a silver lining. What was something that you could point out from that game? You're like, this is encouraging for LAFC. This is something that I like and something that they can take going forward.
I think the attitude, and that's something that you can always take from this group, because even though they're tired, even though it's been a crazy calendar, they're always fighting. They want to win, especially at home, and they know how special it is to be in front of those fans at BMO Stadium. So I take away that you will always get that fight out of this team.
Something that I wrote about after the game, and I was surprised because I had to do some digging to find this. So Denny Bonga scores. It's actually his first goal in 5 games, which is kind of crazy because he's been
first
scoring
one in the month of June.
Yeah, he's been scoring like just for fun. Carlos Vela also scores.
Yes.
You know, it's the first time that the two of them have scored in a game for LAFC in 2023.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
So if that is the sign of things to come, that Denny's going to be back to scoring for fun and Carlos is going to be scoring with him, I think you take that.
Yeah.
You definitely
take it, because for them as goal scorers, and we know the fact that you can score and have those goals, it's going to give you confidence. So the fact that both of them scored in the same game, it's pretty amazing.
So let's look ahead a little bit. Like I said, this is, even though they have this week to train, this is like the eye of the hurricane, because we came out of 8 games in 24 days, week to train. We're going to Dallas. It's going to be 5 games in 14 days. And not to mention, you go to Dallas, which is, I'm assuming, I mean, it's kind of hot here today for like the first time in a while, but I'm assuming Dallas is at least 20 degrees hotter.
Scorching hot.
Scorching hot and horrible to play in. And then on Tuesday, you have to go to the Rose Bowl and play the Galaxy. Katya, if you're Steve and you're having to make decisions based on, again, still injuries, absences, fatigue, all those things, well, how are you looking at these 2 games? Because Saturday to Tuesday is not ideal, ever.
Definitely not ideal. I don't want to be in Steve's shoes
no.
right now.
Which is why I gave the question to you.
But if I had to make a choice, I'd say you're still at the top of the table fighting those spots. You go to Dallas and I feel, okay, you have your starters during the first half, see how the game plays out. And I feel like you don't just let them go the full 90 minutes. I'd say 60 minutes perhaps. Like, some of the guys, of course, will go the 90 minutes, but your main guys, because you have that game against the Galaxy. That's important for the fans. You're going to be here in LA. It's going to be a different setting. So right. I'd say just also try to manage the minutes and have those rotations in there.
Yeah, I feel like Dallas of all places, Houston's like this too. It's almost like that no matter what. You go there and you say to yourself, let's see what we can do in the first 45 minutes. If things go really bad, which like they did in Houston and that loss in Houston, you say, well, I want to protect my guys because I know grand scheme of things, there's a bigger picture, right? And we talked about this off air, you and I. It's kind of okay. It's not okay to lose games, but every team is going to go through a rough patch, and it's almost better to get through it now because, and you were saying this, to be that much stronger when we get in the back end when games really matter.
Definitely, because I'd rather have them go through this rough patch right now and then come out of it, finish the season strong, get ready for the playoffs, and find that rhythm than right now. And that way also this group is going to be battle tested, and you're going to see the player's character. You're going to see how to respond in every situation. So I think this is actually good to go through that adversity, and it can only make the team stronger when you expect them come out on the other side just looking better and just finding themselves.
Mm-hmm. And you remember what it was like last year. Remember the little stretch?
Yeah, the scenario is a little bit different from what happened last year. I was actually thinking about that.
You were with us. We did one of the watch-alongs for that. I remember we were all so excited. We were going to that bar. It was me, Heath Pierce, and you, and we had a watch-along. We were like, this is going to be great. Top of the table clash in Austin. Looks great. And then worst case scenario for us, at least, obviously for the team as well, but to be doing that game and to be trying to like put a brave face on when Austin just thrashed them.
That's a perfect example because that was a difficult game. You lost against Austin. Austin was just like off the roof with that result. But then you face them in the Western Conference final, and then LAFC gets to go to the final. So, it's a perfect example that even though right now it might be difficult, it's better to come out on the other side for those games during the playoffs or during the end of the season. So there's time. So we don't need to panic right now.
How excited are you for the Rose Bowl? I'm sure you've covered many a game, especially like Mexico games there at the Rose Bowl. How excited are you to see LAFC Galaxy Rose Bowl?
I'm excited because it's an iconic venue. Just seeing the fans there for an MLS game, for El Clásico and El Clásico, El Tráfico, like we say in Spanish. And I was thinking about other games that I've been to aside from the Mexican national team, Real Madrid. I've seen Real Madrid play there against Juventus. All those games are always like super excited. Back in the day, I went with my friends to also like Real Madrid whenever they do their preseason here in LA, and we would always go. Back in the day, I got to see Cristiano Ronaldo.
What is back in the day? It's like 2 years ago for you.
No,
because I'm so much older.
If Cristiano Ronaldo was still with Real Madrid,
true. So it's
been a few years now.
5 or 6 years at least, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I should know that, being that he left Real Madrid to go to Juventus. But I try to, as much as it was fun to have Cristiano in Juventus, it was not the best years.
Not what everybody thought it would be.
No, well, because Juventus came off, 2 Champions Leagues in 3 years. Then they're thinking, that's the missing piece. It clearly was not the missing piece.
It'd be interesting to hear George's side of the story.
I will not.
I won't do that.
I'm going to stay on his good side. I think I will. But yeah, I mean, the Rose Bowl, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a unique experience for everybody to be in a kind of neutral setting, but a historic neutral setting. It's always beautiful there. Great sunsets there at the Rose Bowl. And I'm sure the fireworks on 4th of July, so it's a holiday. Good time for the kids to get out there. I'm sure all that will be great and fun for everybody. Will you be there?
I will be there. Yes, I'm ready.
Still debating, because the only thing about the Rose Bowl is parking.
Why are you debating?
Parking is so bad.
You just have to get there. Everybody, if you're going to the game, remember you have to get there 3 hours before.
Katya's parking tips for the Rose Bowl. What do you got? Do you have a secret location to park? Or
not
no,
really, because I always use lot F.
Okay.
Media parking. It's normally there.
Yeah. It's still on a golf course?
No, it's like right next to the stadium.
Oh.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good lot.
For once, media is treated well, and they get to walk shorter distances. Normally, we're the ones that are like, hey, you're going to park here, and then you're going to get on a tram, and the tram is going to take you to within 100 yards of the stadium, and then you got to walk in.
Yes, at SoFi for Rams games, you're just like parked all the way out there. You have to walk a lot. But anyway, not at the Rose Bowl, which I appreciate. And my tip is get there early because you have so many fans trying to get to the stadium, and you only have like 3 entrances to go into Pasadena in the Rose Bowl. That's the difficult part, so you have to get there early. Remember, it's also the perfect setting. It's 4th of July. You can tailgate if you prepare for it, and you can just be there calmly and then go into the stadium and not have to rush. Also, like, save some food for after the game, because
it's going to take a while to get out.
It's to get out of that parking lot. It takes a while. So you can do a post-game tailgate for traffic to clear up. If not, you're just going to be in a standstill for an hour, and not fun. I'd rather just have something there in the parking lot and then leave.
Vince's and Katya's tips. Be ready to tailgate twice.
Exactly.
And also in that same regard, there's a lot of steps at the Rose Bowl, so don't go too hard on the first tailgate because there's a lot of steps. I'm putting it out there. You know your friends that I'm talking to, or yourself. You know if it's you. I'm just putting it out there. I haven't plugged our guest yet. By the way, we're going to have special guest Denil Maldonado come on with us. Obviously, Katya is here because, as you all know, my Spanish...
No bueno?
Not as good.
Un poquito?
No, not even that. Not even that. I can understand. Speaking it, I don't even want to embarrass myself to speak it. But we'll have Denil Maldonado, and we're going to do a little bit of we're going to change gears here a little bit on the MVP, Vince LaRosa, Katya Castorena. We are going to talk about Leagues Cup. Why Leagues Cup, Vince? Leagues Cup is not for another month. I know. But guess what? Over the weekend, something that pertains slightly to Leagues Cup happened. You were there. Pachuca versus Tigres is it Campeones de Campeón or Campeón de Campeones?
Campeón de Campeones.
Okay. Tigres wins that game. Obviously, that now sets up LAFC September 27th, BMO Stadium at Campeone Cup.
Campeones Cup. I know we have so much now. It's like Campeón de Campeones, Campeones Cup, Leagues Cup, Nations League with the national team. So I just have to remind myself, I'm like, wait a second, this is the Leagues Cup. When I was like getting ready to watch the Mexico-US game, I was like, wait, that's Nations League. And then the one coming up for
Gold
clubs,
Cup.
It's
Club World
Leagues
Cup. Yeah. Oh, God. There's too many things. But in that regard, things have gotten a little bit spicy. Gignac had some words to say about MLS, saying that he felt MLS, 1, is just marketing, and 2, Liga MX is still well ahead of them in the regards of footballing on the field. I've already touched on this. You get to cover many teams, especially in Liga MX teams included. How do you think Liga MX teams are looking at Leagues Cup before we get into how LAFC probably views it?
I know I covered Liga MX many years. I remembered I was there for a CONCACAF Champions League final between Tigres and Pachuca, and Pachuca beat them at home in that second leg. So now Tigres got a little bit of a revenge. Well, they had already in another Campeón de Campeones. Anyway, with what Gignac said, of course I get it. Like, he has to protect where he's playing. He's been there for a long time. He's been like this protagonist in Liga MX for the past, 6-7 years.
Right.
And he's so beloved by the Tigres community and the fan base, which is an awesome fan base, one of the best ones in Mexico. So, of course, he needs to protect Liga MX. He needs to, spice things up a little bit with what's coming up. And I get it. MLS does a lot of marketing, and they're really good at it. But that's like part of the point. And I loved some of the fans' comments when they said like, this is not Gignac just saying that MLS does only marketing. And then he posted other examples of when Tigres did collaborations with DC and many other brands. Like, it's part of the business. Every league in the world will do it. And when you look at what MLS is doing, not just marketing wise, but overall, just how much the league has grown over the years and to the point where we are now, I think it's unbelievable. And they just can't be blindfolded to the fact, like saying Liga MX is still better, Liga MX is still better. It's like a time to acknowledge that MLS has grown so much, and we're seeing more and more quality players coming into the league, and that will only help them to keep on growing. So, the Leagues Cup's going to be interesting just to see in that setting, just the teams, all of them going at it, not just like in CONCACAF Champions League, the teams that have been champions, that have made it, but like all of them, and actually assess where both leagues are.
Yeah, it is a bit of bravado, but you're not going to do this tournament if you don't think they're not going to be compelling games, right? Like if Liga MX is, in fact, well ahead of MLS, then what would be the point? And for those that don't know, it's going to be a kind of World Cup style format with a bunch of groups. LAFC and Pachuca both have a bye into the round of 32. So World Cup style, where everyone plays themselves in the groups in different regions. around only the United States, which is a key point for Gignac, who's saying, look, we're better than them. Well, then you're going to have to come here and prove it. But then it will go from group stage to a knockout phase. LAFC would play the second place team between either Austin, Mazatlan FC, or Juarez.
Yes.
I'm going to get, I don't know, it's hard to guess that. Like, if you had to guess who would be second in that group, I could. If you asked me this before the MLS season started, I'd say Austin, I think, is going to do, because the games are going to be in Austin. So I'd say Austin, clear front runners in the group. Now I'm not so sure.
No, I still believe Austin can take the group.
Okay.
Especially when you see Mazatlan and Juarez and how they've been in the past few years. But I'd say Mazatlan would be my pick to be that second place.
Okay. And then if LAFC, which would host that game, round of 32 game, and I think the way it would work is if the LAFC keeps winning, would continue to host through the next rounds. But if Mazatlan coming to BMO Stadium, I don't want to say it because we said that LAFC would be probably favorites against Leon. That didn't work out so well. But Leon, Mazatlan, not the same.
Definitely not the same.
So who would you be tipping?
Oh, I would take LAFC 100%.
Okay. And then for LAFC, like, obviously CONCACAF Champions League does not go the way that it does. Is it a way in your mind to remind? Because I think when LAFC came in, you can tell me what was the vibe from LAFC. Here we were saying LAFC is maybe the favorites. In Mexico, what was the vibe? What were they saying about LAFC coming up against Leon in the CONCACAF Champions League?
Of course, it was very different. And over there, everybody was saying, like, Leon were the favorites. They were really excited with what Larcamón has been doing with the team. He's a great coach. He's proven himself with what he did with Puebla. So everybody was excited. And because of the history and what we've seen of the Liga MX teams being so dominant in that setting, even though Seattle was the team that got to put an end to the streak that they've had, I still heard everybody favoring Leon. They like acknowledge what LAFC had done, and of course like the big names and the MLS champions, but everybody's trying to protect their own, so they were trying to protect and favor. I remember I posted something like after that second leg, like broken heart that LAFC lost, and then one of the Mexican fans like, what? You're not supporting a club that's representing
Katya's home base. We've already
MX?
established this.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can pick whoever I want to support. So yeah, I got a little bit of like backlash on that.
Well, so this is me obviously projecting way too far in advance, and we don't know if this is going to happen. But Katya, if I'm asking you, and you're wearing your Liga MX hat, you're out there. If LAFC is to do well in Leagues Cup, let's say win Leagues Cup, and then also when they play Tigres in the Campeones Cup, raise that. What would be the perception of LAFC in Mexico if that is the case? Yeah,
it opens up the conversation again in terms of who's doing better right now in this moment. Even Gignac said it with his comments. I know that my comments might not be taken great right now when we look at the national team. And I mean, these are two completely different things, but because of all the difficulty surrounding Mexican soccer right now, including the national team. So he's like, I know my comments are not going to be like well taken or in the best light right now because of everything that's surrounding like the Mexican soccer, the Mexican Federation, the league, and so on. But no, it sheds a completely different light. And I think it already is the way the Mexican fans are perceiving not just MLS, but certain teams in MLS. LAFC is pretty up there now.
Okay.
People are aware of what LAFC is doing. Of course, Carlos Vela has been huge in just like, shedding light and having the spotlight also in Mexico of what's happening here. They know about the team. They know about the signing. So, they've gained that respect for sure.
Is there anything else about Leagues Cup that excites you, aside from LAFC winning Leagues Cup?
It excites me just to see like this new tournament, how it plays out. I know some of the players, especially Mexican players, aren't that excited because they're going to have to be away from home for a month in that World Cup setting where you're just going to be at a hotel. So that's going to be tough. When you hear the front office side of things, of course, they're excited because of what this represents marketing wise and just really getting to see and assess where each league is and just having this exchange that we're seeing as a way of both leagues to grow ahead of the World Cup that's going to be played here also jointly in 2026. So it's just different perspectives. We'll see how the players respond at the end of all.
I'm actually, I'm excited, and I know that this won't really be in the marketing, but I'm excited for how broad it is, because we are used to seeing the LAFCs, the Seattles against the bigger teams like Pachuca, Club America, Monterrey. But we don't know much about Juarez and Mazatlan, and we don't know much about, like, let's say, RSL versus Juarez and Mazatlan. Like, I think we always compare, and we use Gignac. Obviously, he's at the peak. Tigres is probably the best team in Liga MX in the past decade, right? And
Definitely.
then we're lucky to have an LAFC team that in the past 5 years has been one of the best teams in MLS. But we're always comparing the elite to the
top
elite.
teams, yes.
But I think one of the true values of your league is top to bottom, right? So what about some of those middle clubs or lower clubs? So I think it's going to be interesting to finally see those teams play. Obviously, it will come with the caveat of they had to travel here and stay here. But I do find some interest in seeing like a Mazatlan, like I said, versus RSL, or I don't know, Cincinnati versus. I don't want to name a name. I don't want to name a name, because then if somebody that's like a fan of them goes, "How dare you say my team's not elite in Liga MX? You don't know anything about Liga MX, Vince." But Xolos would be a good one. Yeah. Cincinnati versus Xolos. I just think that'll be very interesting, because it's not some. I'm getting a little bit sick.
No,
of
I
seeing.
agree. And when I was saying like it will be a way to assess where each league is really at, I think those are the games actually that will tell us. So I totally agree with that. That just seeing those matches that we don't normally get to see outside of CONCACAF Champions League, when we're like facing elite teams and not in this other format, that I think that's one of the interesting parts for sure.
All right, that'll put a bow on Leagues Cup. Of course, that starts for all the Liga MX teams other than Pachuca, and all the MLS teams other than LAFC at the end of July. LAFC, though, will not kick off probably to, I think the window they have is August 2nd or 4th would be the round of 32.
Yes.
That's when their game at BMO Stadium would be. We're going to get to our special guest in a second. One last thing. All-Stars have been announced. Denil Maldonado voted in. Ryan Hollingshead, coach's pick. Thoughts and or snubs?
It was a given that Denil Maldonado had to be there, of course. Ryan Hollingshead, he's had a great season as well, so I'm glad that they picked him. He's a player that's so versatile, and he's been great with LAFC. I'm surprised, of course, to not see Carlos Vela on that list. I believe it'd be the first time since he's joined LAFC that he wouldn't be a part of the All-Star.
Yeah, and he's been captain of the All-Star multiple times.
So I was pretty shocked not to see his name on that list. We'll see what happens. I don't know if there's still a possibility.
There is still
commission. I mean,
there's always a possibility.
I know.
MLS gets to do whatever they want when it comes to these
like
competitions.
Commissioner's pick, or like someone gets injured.
Right. Also,
Okay,
it's
who knows?
against Arsenal. Carlos Vela, Arsenal.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe things can
There's
happen.
a history there.
I would say, and no offense to our old friend Tyler Miller, he was picked by his coach. Wayne Rooney will be the coach because it's there in D.C. Hey, we have a pretty good goalkeeper here in John McCarthy that has recorded 6 shutouts, and I think that maybe he should have been considered, but it is what it is. I think John will probably enjoy maybe the extra week off. Before we get off of this, yes or no, Messi will be there?
I don't know if he'll be there to play, because last we heard is he would start playing until August. But I feel it'd be a great opportunity, at least for him to be there as that main attraction presentation of him being around, the guys, and just that setting and that celebration of the MLS All-Star. I feel like he should be there at least in the building, even if he doesn't play.
I'm going to go out on a limb. Carlos Vela will be there. Messi will be there. Whether they both play, I don't know, but I think they will be there. We're going to get to our guest here, Denil Maldonado. You can tell I'm not normally the host. Denil Maldonado will join us. He's center back for LAFC, so we'll get to him right now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to have with us center back for LAFC, Denil Maldonado, and I have to say, the most popular man in Honduras. Whenever we post that you are starting a game for LAFC, the amount of comments with the Honduran flag it's unbelievable. Like they love you so much. I guess my first question, I might as well just get into it. My first question is like, what is it about football in Honduras that the passion is so high?
Dice que eres de los más populares porque siempre que publican alguna fotografía en la que estás tú y aparecen todas las banderas de Honduras, dice que ¿cómo describirías lo especial que es cómo se vive el fútbol en tu país?
La verdad que en mi país pues el fútbol es a full. Bueno, hay mucha gente que me sigue y bueno, creo que por eso aparecen muchas banderitas apoyándome y creo que estoy agradecido con ellos porque siempre uno se alegra como futbolista al ver que el mismo compatriota le está brindando ese apoyo incondicional a uno dentro del partido y bueno, creo que ese también es una motivación para mí para poder seguir trabajando bien y darles alegría a ellos.
He says that football is lived with such passion in Honduras, and he's very grateful because of the support that he receives, and it's an extra motivation every time he's on the field, also because of all that support, all that love, all those messages of the fans back home following his career.
Could I just one follow-up? You've played now here in the U.S. You obviously played in Mexico. What's unique about football in Honduras compared to those locations? Like, what is something that is just it's like only in Honduras that we would never experience in any other place with football?
Has jugado en otros países, pero pudiendo hacer esa comparación hasta ahora de lo que has vivido en tu carrera, ¿qué es lo que hace especial ese ambiente, ese fútbol en Honduras?
La verdad que siempre nos han diferenciado por ser un país que muy futbolero. Creo que en Honduras, a pesar de que no salen muchos jugadores al exterior, siempre el que sale siempre está ese apoyo y creo que es por ahí donde uno pues llega a alentar al aficionado y darles alegría a ellos porque ellos siempre esperan más de uno y obviamente pues con una alegría que uno sale fuera del país creo que eso es una alegría para ellos.
It's a country that it's very characterized by football, and it's part of their identity and their culture. And even though not many players get to go abroad, whenever a player leaves, of course, the whole country is behind that player and gets to follow that player and support that player and just try to represent the country in the best way possible.
Clearly. And if you're from Honduras and you're listening to this episode, hello.
Hola.
Hola. And as you can tell, if you're a normal listener to this, we're doing it a little bit different. Katya's here. She's going to help kind of translate back and forth, but she has her own questions. So Katya, you go with your own question. She's also going to have to though translate for herself. So she's doing a lot.
Yes.
Katya's doing all the heavy lifting here is basically what I'm saying.
Translate for myself. My questions, I'm going to say the question first in English, but my question would be just Denil having like more minutes and getting settled with the team. How has that been for you? El tener ya más minutos con el equipo, irte sintiendo cada vez más cómodo. ¿Cómo ha sido este proceso en estas últimas semanas para ti?
Ha sido muy lindo, a pesar de que pues lastimosamente han estado compañeros lesionados, que obviamente pues uno quiere que estén los compañeros siempre a disposición, pero creo que a pesar de ello creo que he alcanzado esos minutos que es cubriendo el puesto de los compañeros y creo que me he ido ganando el puesto. Profe pues me ha dado la confianza obviamente y he ido sumando minutos que han sido de calidad. Creo que he ido mejorando poco a poco y bueno, espero que seguir por esa ruta de ir alcanzando más minutos, más partidos y poder ser un referente en el equipo.
He's happy with the minutes that he's seen so far due to circumstances, some players that went down, and then he was able to take advantage of those opportunities and like slowly but steadily, start getting a hold of the position and start positioning himself as a starter, and he's very happy with that. And also he says that in the long term he wants to just be a referente. How would we say a referente on the team?
Like a reference point?
Like a reference point in the position for the team. So he's gotten also Steve's support in all of this and the whole coaching staff. So he said he's enjoyed the past few games and just feeling better with his game as games go by.
We've enjoyed watching you the past few games. I'll say to that point, and you wanting to be maybe seen as a reference point or somebody that's just a solid player back there, your comfort. It seems like now you really feel comfortable to where we're even getting to see you add some of your personality, some of your flair. I mean, I can think back, I think it was a couple of games ago, you ran like 60 yards to track a guy down, and like we're seeing how fast you are. So how do you feel like now your game, you're getting to actually, as you're more comfortable, you're getting to show who you are?
Conforme te sientes más cómodo, dice, recuerda esa jugada donde tuviste que correr 60 yardas para alcanzar un jugador en esa carrera de regreso, que conforme has tenido esa confianza y te vas sintiendo más cómodo, que tanto te permite poder mostrar también el jugador que eres.
Claro, la verdad que uno cuando va obteniendo más minutos pues se va posicionando mejor en el campo, va agarrando mayor confianza y creo que es producto de los partidos. Al final pues uno siempre trata de hacer su trabajo, disfrutar cada momento obviamente porque sabemos que es una competencia sana, de que ya cuando el compañero regresa o pues el que ande mejor pues va a utilizar la posición o dependiendo si el profe decide por optar por otro compañero, pero bueno, al final uno disfruta, obviamente con responsabilidad y cada partido pues siempre lo tomo como una final, así que por eso siempre trato de dar lo mejor de mí.
He says he approaches each game with the mindset that it is a final, and that's why he tries to just give the best of himself at every game or at every given situation. And definitely, like, as you get more minutes, you feel more settled in the system and like within the team with that communication. It shows, and you can like show each game. So that's what's allowed him to just be more comfortable and like show his game, show who he is, and that, yeah.
This has got to be one of the weirder interviews you've ever had to do, right?
when we were just like going back and forth. In terms of those leadership players that are with the team, and we were talking about defenders, we of course have to talk about Giorgio Chiellini. How has that experience been for you, just getting to see how he does things on a daily basis and just learning from him? Hablamos siempre de estos jugadores líderes que tiene el equipo y tenemos que hablar de un referente como lo es Chiellini por la trayectoria que tiene. ¿Cómo ha sido para ti ver cómo trabaja en el día a día y aprender de lo que hace?
No, la verdad que como lo dice, un jugador muy referente, ha estado en mucha competencia, se debe a ello que por eso es un gran jugador. Me encanta jugar con él porque obviamente al transmitir esa experiencia uno va aprendiendo. Obviamente en el campo pues me siento muy cómodo con él, obviamente con los demás también, pero creo que la experiencia que tiene Giorgio es fundamental y al final pues es muy bien para el equipo porque tener referente como él vale la pena.
He's an elite player, and I feel very comfortable playing alongside him. And what makes a difference is his experience and all of the things that he's seen over his career so that he can share it with us. And that's been super helpful for me. So I feel very comfortable just playing alongside him. And it's been very beneficial for the team in general, just having his voice here.
How is Giorgio's Spanish?
Yeah, Giorgio Spanish.
Is it good?
Yeah, good.
Sí, habla bien español.
A little.
Okay, fair. What about you?
Speak of the devil.
Speak of the devil. There's Giorgio now.
Here he is.
He's off camera, but there he
We're
is.
talking about you, Giorgio.
Yeah, better or good?
Always good.
Always
good. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Hi.
Ciao, come stai?
Bene, grazie. Yeah.
She speaks more Italian than me too. She's
yeah.
incredible,
Yeah.
right?
Parla un po' di italiano.
Colpa tua, your fault.
Yeah.
We're just talking about how this guy has been learning from you.
No, he's been learning so quickly, but he's a very good player. We didn't discover nothing. I'm very happy that Denil has space and he's helping us a lot. Yeah, he deserves all the best as possible.
Awesome.
We didn't even plan this,
There
but
we go. Yes. So it was great.
Yeah. And good continue. Yeah.
Yes. Grazie mille.
Prego.
Buonasera.
he got me all flustered. But in that regard, him being a mentor for you, I see you with players like Eric Dueñas, where you're mentoring them. What's that relationship been like for some of the younger players looking up to you?
¿Cómo es el efecto ahora? Así como Chiellini puede ser ese mentor para ti, pero ahora tú también ser ese mentor para los otros jugadores jóvenes.
La verdad que uno siempre trata de transmitirle, como decir, ese compañerismo al compañero que viene desde abajo. Me tocó pues desde conocer a Eric Dueñas, cuando los dos pues veníamos empezando, yo le transmitía a él calma, tranquilidad, obviamente esa seguridad a la hora de tener esos partidos, a la hora de tener minutos, pues él ha ido creciendo, es un chico que al final tiene mucha capacidad y creo que lo ha demostrado en el campo y puede ser un referente también en el equipo.
with Dueñas. They started working together, and he's a player that has a lot of potential. He's a great kid. He's been working a lot, so he enjoys also now being in that position of getting to mentor somebody else and help them out. So that's made it easy because of that relationship that they've been establishing.
What about food? Are you enjoying LA? Bayeda? Would that be Honduran or am I speaking out of turn?
¿La comida en Los Ángeles te ha gustado? ¿Has encontrado comida hondureña?
La verdad que sí, he encontrado mucha comida hondureña, pero trato de disfrutar también de la comida de LA.
That he's found a lot of Honduran food. That's a good thing about LA, that you can find food from pretty much anywhere and like good food. So he's enjoyed that, but he says he's also trying new things, American food, but like food from LA. ¿Qué te ha gustado de otras cosas que has buscado probar aquí?
Pues más que todo siempre trato de buscar como comida así de carne, un poco de asado. Me ha encantado porque he ido a lugares que me ha impresionado cómo hacen la carne y muy fabuloso.
That he's been impressed by nice steak places, so he's been like going after the steaks and how
right to the top.
And how they cook everything. So that he's enjoyed from being here.
If I sit down at a Honduran restaurant, what should I order?
¿Qué debe pedir si va a un restaurante hondureño?
Le recomiendo el pollo choco. Fabuloso, le va a encantar.
Pollo choco.
Yeah.
¿Qué tiene?
Es el pollo con tajadas, repollo, aderezo y de todo.
Okay, pollo choco.
Okay.
So it's chicken that has a special dressing and like other vegetables in there. So I don't know the recipe either, but now we will all have to go and try pollo choco.
I guess we have the podcast has always ended with Max and I saying we're going to go eat somewhere with the players because food is always on our mind at this time of the day.
I was going to say at this time of the day I'm getting hungry too.
Yeah.
So that sounds good.
What's an American food that you tried that you were like, no, why? Like, don't eat this.
¿Has probado algo que no te ha gustado de comida americana que digas, no es lo mío?
Pues la verdad no. He encontrado comidas que sí no traen mucho sabor, pero al final pues siempre trato de experimentar nuevos platitos. Pero al final creo que sí he encontrado algunas comidas que no son de mi gusto, capaz por el tipo de sazón que le echan, pero bueno, creo que siempre trato de disfrutar cada comida.
He says that he tries to enjoy a little bit of everything and try different things. There are some things that, in his opinion, something that he's tried that haven't been as flavorful. I think that's very typical of the Latin American cuisine, so you have to have that flavor in there. So some of the things that he's tried that haven't been as flavorful, those he didn't particularly enjoy, but he just likes to try different things.
I think I speak for myself, Katya, and Denil Maldonado when I say season your food, people. It makes it better. Season spices. We like it. We enjoy it. It'll help. Yuli, were you showing off camera? Was that the pollo?
Pollo choco.
A pollo choco?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, everybody,
The
you
chicken,
easily
the dressing on top.
Easily found on Google. Highly recommended by Denil Maldonado.
Ya me pegó hambre, ¿no?
Now he's hungry.
He's hungry too.
He's hungry. Well, then, you know what? That's a good place to wrap it up. We're probably all hungry here, but it's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure to have you on the MVP podcast for the first time. And Katya, thank you so much. All the talent is over here. I'm just running things on the side.
Oh, hey, teamwork makes the dream work.
Yep.
Yes.
Fair. So thank you so much, Denil, and we look forward to seeing you play much, much more with LAFC, and hopefully you come on the show again.
Denil, muchas gracias, un placer tenerte. Dijo que con eso nos despedimos para que todos podamos ir a comer porque ya nos dio hambre.
No, muchas gracias a ustedes por siempre compartir estos momentos y le agradezco porque siempre pues tratamos de compartir así entre nosotros y bueno, creo que la gente también quiere saber un poco más de nosotros y al final pues les agradezco siempre.
Y saludos a toda la gente de Honduras.
Claro, nos saludas a todos ellos que siempre están pendientes y bueno, me imagino que este video pues no va a ser la excepción.
They're watching.
They're watching.
They are watching. All right, that'll put a bow on another Max and Vince podcast. Inside LAFC, the Max and Vince podcast without Max, with Katya. We had two special guests. We had Katya. We had Denil Maldonado. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. And again, hello to everybody in Honduras. Oh, wait, one does?
En español, despídenos.
Oh, you want me to do it in español?
Yes.
How would I say it how would I say
Hasta la próxima.
Hasta la próxima.
Ah, good.